All right. So we're getting this open, and we've got 10 attendees rolling in now. And so folks, we're doing a lot of setup here.
Daniel Sheerin, what's up, man?
How's it going, Evan? How are you?
It's been forever.
How's it going, everybody? Good to see you.
Oh, Happy New Year, Danny. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, great to be here. Happy New Year.
Are you in DC still?
Tailgate thing up back there.
That's great.
What are you seeing? Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. I'm just minding the ether, as they say. And then the one other thing I'm looking for. All right. We're recording too. Assume that's okay. So we've got about 44, 45 folks rolling in. We've got registered about 150. So we'll take just a minute for everybody to come in. And I'm just flabbergasted to have you guys here. Danny, it's great to see you, brother. Amanda, I'm so glad to have you on too. And it's just, it really, so pleased. All right. Actually able to, let's see. Oh, we already have somebody in the chat, or is that me?
Let me check it right here.
Ah, that's Elijah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for, thank you, Elijah. And panelists, you can also use the chat if you want to quietly send something to me, like there's a booger hanging out of my nose. You can just do a chat just to panelists, and we'll be the ones to see it. So everybody, now if you want to get a quick glass of water or something like that, we'll start in just about a minute. I want to give time for more attendees to come in. Luis, I understand you've got to go, so whenever that needs to be, understand.
Yeah, I have about an hour.
Okay,
A little over an hour, and then we have to head out to meet some people for dinner.
Sure.
Fair enough.
So we'll be asking about
Staying safe, of course.
Yeah, that's what we do in Florida.
So Brett's asking how to make sure your attendees, you don't have to worry about that. You're just attendees. So we're not seeing you or hearing you guys. So you're fine.
Well, we share the recording on MackBrady.com.
Yep, we'll share the recording. And there we go. All right. And my boss decides to text me just as we're getting started. Isn't that the way? Well, I don't want to keep folks too long, so we'll go ahead and just get things going right now. I want to thank everybody for coming to the 9th annual Mack Brady Memorial Clinic. And I'm Christian Brady. My wife Elizabeth will roll over here.
Yes.
And our daughter Izzy will be joining us from England, where she's in graduate school.
So the first thing, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us here today. We heard from so many different families who have come to every single clinic, starting out with Eric Wales' wonderful soccer shots program as toddlers, and now up in high school themselves. Also our cousins and Mack's teammates who all wear number 7 and wear his wristband and carry him all through their lives. And we just thank all of you for coming and for your continued love. So thank you for being here today.
Great. So Elizabeth is going to roll over to her computer. She'll view the chat and the Q&A feature.
Yep.
But we thought we would start with this little silent video that the Philadelphia Union put together a few years ago for a halftime recognition. So that's our buddy. Mack would have been 17 yesterday. He started playing soccer at 4, and by the age of 5, he knew he wanted to be in the goal. By the time he was 7 and 8, he was already incredibly confident in the position. I'm his dad, So I'm not going to give you my assessment because, of course, I thought he was amazing. But he loved it. He loved playing in goal. He loved being the last line of defense in the beginning of the counterattack. He took pride in the fact that his buddies knew he always had their back. He also dreamed of playing for Penn State and maybe the USA someday. And then he died very unexpectedly of a blood infection, sepsis, on New Year's Eve 2012, just shy of his 9th birthday. Elizabeth and I and his sister Izzy wanted to remember Mack for his joy in life, and that was found often between the pipes. So we established this fund with Penn State men's soccer for their goalkeepers. We had very modest expectations. I did fundraising for the university and knew what it took to get a scholarship and a fund like this up off the ground, but thousands and thousands of people, truly thousands, have given to this fund, and it is well over $250,000 today. It is the only goalkeeper fund like it in the nation. It is not a scholarship, but rather a fund for the program to develop keepers. So coach can use it for recruitment, equipment, whatever he likes. Bob Warming, who was then the Penn State men's coach, was instrumental in helping us get the fund set up. And we can never thank Bob enough for his friendship and support then and always. In the days after Mack died, so many people reached out to us, including major league keepers and coaches. That was when we learned about GKU, the Goalkeepers Union, that special bond between those who play this unique position. Todd Hoffard was among them, and he's with us tonight. And he said, when I responded to him after he said, well, let me know what I can do. I said, I don't know, because Mack's gone, and his buddies don't want to play the game anymore without their goalkeeper. So Todd suggested a clinic. Both Penn State men and women's teams rushed back to campus to put on a clinic. Todd came with all sorts of MLS gear for Mack's buddies. And less than 3 weeks after our son died, we had over 50 kids there for the first clinic. These last few years, we've had more than 150 kids present in Holuba Hall, running all over the place, diving, throwing balls every which way. So it's 8 years since Mack left us, but it's the 9th clinic. And we're so glad that you all could be with us. So thank you for joining us. Thank you especially to our panelists. Before we get going, let me go over a little housekeeping tip. You'll see there a Q&A feature. I encourage you all to use that feature and then give the thumbs up on a question you like. That'll help me and Elizabeth be able to see which questions you most want asked of the panelists. And then you can use the chat if you want to say things like hi to my aunt and uncle, Joyce and Eric, who've just typed into the chat.
I'll take care of it.
So Elizabeth will take care of all of that. Unfortunately, NCAA regulations keep our Penn State keepers and coaches from joining us. But our panelists today include Penn State alumni, major league men and women keepers and coaches. So I'll give you just a few more minutes, if you'll bear with me, brief introductions to each, and then we'll dive into our conversation and discussion. Danny Sheerin. Danny Sheerin was one of the goalkeepers that Mack watched play. And he was there for us from the very beginning. You see pictures from one of the very first clinics right there. After graduating from Penn State, Danny worked in supply chain management in Philadelphia before finding the job where he's really passionate about. He works for DCScores, a program that gives 3,000 kids in the Washington, D.C. area the chance to learn and find their voice through a combination of soccer, poetry, and community service. DCScores.org. Evan Finney. You can see Danny right over Evan's shoulder there. Another Penn State keeper alumnus, born and raised in San Francisco. Evan played at Penn State from 2013 to 2017 before turning pro. After a few stints in Europe, Finney returned back to the States and signed with Real Monarchs of Real Salt Lake organization, where he went on to win a USL championship in 2019. He now lives in New York with his girlfriend and his puppy, working in a tech startup. Amanda Dennis is our most recent Penn State graduate on the call, and so thrilled to have her with us, recently engaged. I want to add, congratulations, Amanda. And a year into her term with the Houston Dash. So pleased to have you with us. She ended her career at Penn State with 202 career saves in 72 appearances, and named to Big Ten All-Tournament Team and All-Academic Big Ten in 2017-2018. We have with us also Coach Ben Olsen. Ben played for and was head coach of DC United, and you can see Mack's favorite MLS team. From Middleton, Pennsylvania, he grew up playing for FC Delco, a team that we played against, League club near Philadelphia. Played for Virginia, the Cavaliers, before moving for 12 years playing with DC United, making 221 appearances, scoring 29 goals, 49 assists, and 2 MLS Cup titles, 2 MLS Gold Cup, and he also represented the United States in the 2006 FIFA World Cup. Coach, it's a particular privilege to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Chris Sharpe is with us from the Colorado Rapids, first team assistant and goalkeeper coach. This Australian native has been with the Rapids since 2008, working with, been a coach since 2008, working with youth goalkeepers as well at all ages, levels, and abilities. And he's also, as I said, goalkeeper coach within the training session there. Originally, you started, I think, in the Netherlands, right? Or Denmark with Danish clubs there. Is that correct?
Yep, Denmark. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you being with us. Todd Hoffard, of course, most recently a goalkeeper coach for Real Salt Lake, has a vast amount of coaching experience in both men's and women's game and youth, collegiate, and professional levels. For over 3 years, he was goalkeeper coach for United States girls youth national teams, has been called to various training camps at the U14 to U20 levels, and most of all as a friend who has helped us get this whole thing off the ground. To our MLS keepers, Luis Robles, retired goalkeeper for Inter Miami CF just last week, retired. Drafted into Major League Soccer by DC United in 2007, but gave it a pass to go to Germany, where he played for Kaiserslautern, and then moving on to Karlsruhe before coming back to the United States and playing for the New York Red Bulls. And we'll come back to it, but holds the Major League record for most consecutive regular season starts with 183. Thank you for being with us. Joining us a little later will be Nick Rimando, who retired a year ago as goalkeeper for Real Salt Lake and the United States national team. He started in the MLS in 2000, 2001 with the Miami Fusion of blessed memory, as it were, but then moved to DC United and finished his career with 12 years at RSL. So I thank you. I speak of the devil. Thank you very much for being with us, Nick. Well, that's where I want to get us started. We're going to just enter it now into a conversation. We've got a tremendous group here, and we're so pleased to have everybody with us. I thought I would start at the beginning. I'll stop the sharing. That would be useful. I thought I'd start at the beginning, Danny and Evan. Danny, you were there. I think you might have even met Mack, but you were certainly there when that first clinic started off, when Todd came. What did it mean to you when we first started this up and being one of the first Mack Brady keepers along with Wolverton?
Yeah. For me, it was a huge honor to play in Mack's memory. And it was something that our whole team was incredibly proud to do. I never met Mack, but I like to think I might have seen him in the crowd passing by one of these days. And I definitely feel like I got to know him through his family and through all his friends. And it's been the coolest thing for me is just to see his teammates year after year. A lot of them are bigger than me now. Their voices are deeper. And just like seeing them and still seeing all the love that they have for Mack and having that connection with Mack's old teammates and the State College community has been really cool for me. But yeah, as far as Penn State, that was something that we were incredibly proud to play in Mack's memory. He was such a great kid, and we were very happy to do it. Thanks,
Danny. Hey, Finney, how about you? Because we were really off the ground in terms of the Mack Fund for you when you came in, and you all have supported us so tremendously and deeply in the fund.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I mean, it's great to finally reconnect. I know it's been a few years since you left Penn State. I left Penn State. It's good to see former teammates, coaches in here. I have to say, I think if I didn't meet Mack, but he was definitely a very popular guy, because I remember the first Mack Brady clinic. I think we had about 50 to 60 kids, as you said in the beginning of the call. And I think by the fourth Mack Brady clinic that I was a part of, I think we saw over 150 kids. So just being able to continue his legacy and show his teammates and friends of, people in State College that, this is just more than a game. And I think that's really kind of what it came down to at the end of the day.
So the first the Big Ten home opener is always the Mack Brady match. It's a chance for us to showcase our goalkeepers. And Coach Cook wanted me to let everybody know that with the whole COVID year, the season's moving to the spring. And as soon as we get the schedule released, that first home game is also going to be the Mack Brady match. So we'll all be there for that.
Great.
Excuse me. Encourage you all to use the Q&A feature. Adam asked a question that I think is for you, Evan. He wants to know what clubs in Europe you played for.
Yeah, so my fifth year, I guess, my redshirt year, I actually was injured pretty much most of the year, blowing out part of my meniscus. So I missed the draft combine, any kind of opportunities, and was really struggling. But moved to Europe. I lived there from January of 2018 to about July of 2018 as well. I was with Hull City for a bit, and I couldn't get a work permit in England, so I had to come back. Then I went back to Spain at Rayo Vallecano, and I also couldn't get a work permit there, so I had to come back. And sure enough, I was actually about to call it quits, and I was actually visiting my parents who now live in Utah. And I thought one day I'll just throw out one last ditch email with some MLS coaches. And I actually emailed Todd here at RSL, and a bunch of guys were on the injured list. So he said, yeah, sure, come in and train with us for a little bit. And I ended up staying for almost 2 years. So that's kind of my 30-second story right there.
Well, it's great because it feeds into this longer narrative of the fact that there are ups and downs with everybody's career. I thought as now we go to some of the other panelists, I wanted to ask our head coach here, Coach Olsen. You didn't play as a keeper, as I understand. I don't believe you did at any point. But obviously, a keeper is a linchpin for the team. And yet, as one of our friends here asked, are all goalkeepers a little crazy?
Yes.
John Downs himself was a keeper. So what are you looking for in this key position? Is it leadership, consistency? What are the things you look for, Coach?
Well, at our level, first, thanks for having me. This is a real privilege to be on this panel with some neat people and hear Mack's story of a young boy, two young boys myself, and they both love goalie, and they love playing keeper as much as I tell them to not play keeper. It seems like the more I tell them that, the more they want to stay in there. I'll have his uncle Nicky call him one day to maybe talk him out of it. I have the luxury, in my career to act like I know a lot about goalkeepers, but really I hire that position out to people like Todd and really lean on goalkeeper coaches to guide me through that. But of course, you're looking for organization, you're looking for leadership, you're looking for a goalkeeper that doesn't lose you games and is as consistent as possible that you can rely on. Giving up maybe the big save for someone that played in the way that Nicky and Luis played. It just always there. I pretend to know a little bit about it, but really, again, I would more times than not lean on the goalkeeper coach. And I had that luxury.
Do you have any particular memories, either as a player or a coach, I mean, at any level, where you just, after the keeper made a play and you just turned to him and just, wow?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to play with some great goalkeepers. Again, one's on here.
I was going to say, any on this call?
Yeah, Nick Rimando. We missed the boat with Luis. He left us high and dry here at DC. Now it would have changed the entire fortune of our club. Nicky was obviously a special teammate and friend, and to watch him single-handedly win us a championship there in 2004. I've been with, for most of my coaching career, I coached a young man from DC named Bill Hamid, and Bill is one of those goalkeepers that has these moments in these games that are it's like he's a superhero, and you just know after 20-25 minutes where he made one or two big saves that it was going to be a really, really tough night for the other teams to score on him. And so I spent a good 10 years coaching him. So I haven't had that many.
He is something special, that's for sure. Well, I want to bring Amanda and Luis and Nick into this conversation, but keeper coaches Todd and Chris, jump in at any point. I'm seeing some Q&A things come up. But first, Amanda, I wanted to get a sense from you. You've just come into NWLS. It's kind of an odd year to come in. But when did you first know you wanted to be a goalie? Was it early or was it late? What was it for you?
I think technically girls soccer, we obviously didn't have some of the academy teams, stuff like that in Southern California where I was growing up. And so I played co-ed. I played with boys for as long as I possibly could until they wouldn't let me anymore. And so I had so much energy to spend. So I was on the field, but I started playing goalkeeper when I was about 12 and very quickly picked it up and got hooked up with people like Ian Foyer, who's a big goalkeeper coach out in LA. He played over at West Ham and everything like that. I got very lucky with getting out to the national team very quickly, the youth national teams. And so as soon as I put the gloves on, I knew, wow, like this is absolutely it. Like there is no other option. I always have people ask me all the time, would you consider playing another position? Absolutely not. There's no way you could get me to run around the field. There's nothing better than sitting between the pipes and denying the absolute thing that most has to happen in soccer is to score a goal. Like I absolutely want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So nothing more fun than about that.
How about you, Nick or Luis? What was it for you and when was it for you? Nick?
For me, yeah, the goalkeeper got hurt when I was 10 and I didn't feel like running anymore. So yeah, no, when I was young, let's say, I think I was like under 11 or so, our goalkeeper got hurt, jumped in, ended up liking it and stayed in ever since. But I did play on the field growing up. I love still playing on the field. I think Todd could tell you about that, but all through high school, I was on the field. Before I went to college, I wanted to get a little bit better with my feet. It all started from the goalkeeper getting hurt. This guy that ended up getting hurt, funny story, was he ended up having an 11-year career in the NFL. So It wasn't a bad trade-off for him.
Not at all. Not at all. Luis?
That's hilarious, actually, Nick, because I didn't play soccer until I was 11. And what ended up happening is baseball season came to an end and my best friend was trying out for this travel soccer team. And up until then, soccer wasn't really big in our community. And even after I left, it's still not big. But there was this travel soccer team for my age group. And since he was trying out, I went to the tryout. I found out very quickly that I wasn't good enough to make the team. The coach told me after the first day that they were going to cut me. And what ended up happening is 3 weeks later, their goalkeeper got hurt. And so my best friend right away was like, oh, hey, Luis, like he could play goalie. So coach calls me and says, hey, if you're willing to play goalie and only goalie, because we've seen what you can do on the field, you can be on the team. So I thought, why not?
You've seen what you can do on the field. That's not what we're interested.
I mean, it was more like what I
box.
couldn't do. That's what the highlight was, what I couldn't do. And that's why I had to be stuck in goal. But that same goalie went on to have a 6-year Major League Baseball career. So we have that common link there, Nick.
There you go.
Great. And actually, Nick, I looked up Amanda's stats. She's taller than both you and me. So that's congratulations.
That's a win. That's a win.
That's
for the
not how I feel like I'm shrinking.
Hey, I mean, I've always had to lie that I'm 6 feet, but anyone who's ever played against me knows I'm not 6 feet.
6 feet in cleats.
Exactly.
So we've got a bunch of questions coming in Q&A, and I promise you guys I'll get there. Luis, Adam has a bunch of questions for you. We'll get to those. But in this area, thinking about when you all were starting out as kids, as I said, Mack, for whatever reason, decided when he was really young. It may be because I had played goalie in water polo. Very different. It's a lot easier to dive. It doesn't hurt as much when you land. But, coaches have a tendency to not want you to focus in on any one position. And it sounds like most of you guys were older when you got there. Maybe coaches, how do you all feel about kids at 7 and 8 or younger even focusing in on the goal? Chris, Todd?
Yeah, I think it's changed. My opinion of that 5 years ago would have been very different to what it is now. I think there's some very good goalkeeper coaches going around. And I think the want for the younger kids to be in goal earlier. And obviously as they get a little bit older too, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, those kids that have had the fortune to get some good training earlier on tend to be a little bit better come that 12, 13, 14 age group. So if you asked me 5 or 6 years ago, I probably would have said that, let them play both on the field and in goal. But like you said, Mack had a love for it. If they have a passion for it and that's what they want to do, I'm a very big believer in let them do it. But yeah, I think that an earlier age right now is probably good for them. So
Yeah, what always occurred to me was, whereas all the field positions have the same basic skills, I mean, eventually you've got to learn to read the field differently depending on whether you're midfield, defender, and so forth. But the keeper has very specific skills, and it seems to me, sort of a la Malcolm Gladwell, the more repetition you get, the better you're going to be in that. What about, though, single sport? Because the parents of Mack's buddies here will chuckle when I say this, that our coach, even then, when Mack was 8, didn't want him doing anything else. And in fact, we signed Mack up for basketball because my thinking was, I didn't want him to burn out. Swimming had been my sport the whole time, and I was burned out by the time I got to college. But also the hand-eye coordination. Coach Bob Warming said, no, basketball will be good for him as a keeper. What do you think about that when they're young? Or let's put it the other way around. At what point today do you think somebody, they really want to play in college, they've got aspirations? How long can they keep diversifying their athletics? When do they need to focus in and just be a soccer player? And any of you all want to chime in? Todd?
And I don't know if there's an actual age that I would ever dictate that it has to be at, say, 13, 14, 15 or whatever. I think it all is based on the individual. But I know myself, I'm a huge proponent of multi-sports. In fact, I was just watching a call very similar to this the other day with Eric Steele. And if any of you ever know Eric Steele, he was the goalkeeper coach at Man United for many, many years. And even somebody of that stature said that's what he loves about the American goalkeeper, is the fact that we do grow up and we're playing basketball, we're playing tennis, we're playing all these other variety of different sports, which are all hand-eye coordination types of sports, which I believe, just the same way he did, we feel that that's why the American goalkeeper is a little bit special and why it is one of our better positions that we've developed over the course of the last 20, 25 years. So I'm all for multi-sport athletes. I think there is a time, depending on what that individual is, where maybe you should start to concentrate a little bit more on that one sport if you really truly want to succeed. But up until that point, I love the fact that kids are able to play multiple things.
It reminds me of Tim Duncan. He famously didn't play basketball. He was a swimmer and grew up in St. Thomas and didn't play basketball till he got to Wake Forest. And his coach said it was fantastic. He didn't have any bad habits to unlearn, but he had the physical abilities. So he just became practically a perfect basketball player. He didn't have any bad habits to unlearn.
I have a couple quick from the chat.
Elizabeth is coming in.
Yeah, so just a couple fun ones. People are asking a couple questions about phrases that the goalkeepers have and advice for their center backs. So, and they kind of dovetail together.
So keepers talking,
Yeah.
keepers, when you all talk to your defenders, are there particular things you say? Do you have key phrases?
Away.
Away? As in get away, let me do my job?
Right.
Yeah.
No,
We don't want the
ball
balls
as far
near
away
us.
from us as
Get that
possible.
ball away.
Say that again, Luis.
I said kick the ball as far away from us as possible.
How about you, Amanda? When you're talking with your defenders?
I would definitely say away. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most special relationships on the field. I mean, they've saved me so many times. If you can't communicate, sometimes it's very much expected that keepers need to be these extroverted people. And as long as you're able to have a conversation with your center back in the middle of a game, just quick, very specific information saying, I need you to do this. As soon as you learn each other's habits, it becomes just such an easier time when they're shielding off players for you. If you develop that habit of continuing to talk to your center backs, they will put their bodies on the line to make sure that that forward who's running in with just blood in their eyes, looking after that ball, trying to score a goal on you. If you can develop that relationship with them, making sure that they can do whatever possible to keep that ball in net, you guys are on the same page. That is the best communication you can ever have.
And it sounds like, I mean, part of it is the challenge of building that rapport, right? And so for any of the keepers here, you know, everybody has bad seasons, bad games. How did you all cope with that? In particular, right, there's so much, it's a bit like a pitcher, you know, and the keeper is one position in soccer where I often encourage Mack, saying, look, everybody else, you know, the striker can have only one good play the entire game, score the winning goal, and he's a hero. The keeper can have one bad play and be the reason for a loss. Of course, it seems that that's why you guys want to be in the goal, right? To be that last line of defense. But psychologically, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that pressure? And when you have a tough game, a tough day, how do you come back from that?
It just comes with the position. It's the nature of the position that, you know, you're going to have good games. You're going to have bad games. Mm-hmm. When I was growing up as a goalkeeper, I always remember my mom always said it has to get past 10 players before it gets past you. Yeah. And I always held on to that for some reason. But yeah, you want to win every game, especially at this level. You want to play the best every year. That's not always the case. And you just got to have a short memory. You got to have a short mind. You got to, an old coach, Peter Miller, used to tell me the most important play is the next one. And so that was something that I always held on as well. So I think it just felt being in the position and knowing what it takes mentally to continue on, even if you have a bad game, a bad season, just kind of going with the flow and knowing that comes with the position.
Yeah, my goalie coach, I passed on to Mack. The only ball to worry about is the one in front of you. Don't keep score. Don't worry about how many are behind you. If the game's still playing, only worry about the ball in front. Evan, how about you? Because you, as you said, your last season you were injured, and you know that's got to be tough, especially in college. It's your senior year, last year. How was that for you? What got you through?
Yeah, my teammates definitely got me through it for sure. But I mean, over my, you know, during my Penn State career, I had a bunch of what seemed like unfortunate injuries, like breaking part of my face, you know, tearing my meniscus in training, just kind of unlucky breaks. But definitely my teammates 100% got me through. And kind of to piggyback off Nick's comment, my mom used to say the exact same thing to me. Even if the ball gets through me, it went through 10 other people. So, you know, you can't let it kind of just stay in the back of your head. And when I was playing, you know, one of the things if I did get scored on, one of the things I would kind of set for myself is I only worry about it. And then once the whistle blew for the next kickoff, I forget about it. Once that whistle goes off, it's over and done with, and, you know, you're on to the next play. But yeah, teammates, rounding that question off, were definitely the support I had around me that got me through that tough last season for sure.
And Danny, you know, what's the NCAA line right now? Most of us will go pro in something other than our sports. I mean, you loved soccer. You were a swimmer too, like me. In fact, you swam for the team I used to swim for outside of DC. Your dad played soccer at Penn State with a great career in the State Department. What kept you there day after day when, you know, you weren't the starter most of the time? You got some good starts. You had the most amazing vertical leap I think I've ever seen on a fellow your size. What kept you in it?
For me, I think it was probably my teammates more than anything else. Like Evan would let you know, like I would just be like so happy-go-lucky with them all the time in the locker room, and you know, you could kind of just tell how close everybody was. We were always on each other's case. We had a million inside jokes, and like that type of like atmosphere is so hard to come by. And that's something that like I miss being at Penn State to this day. Like, you know, when, you know, my friend calls me out of nowhere or something like that really makes my day. And, you know, soccer, I mean, as far as being a goalkeeper, it's a tough position because only one person can be on the field at a time. Mm-hmm. But for me, just, I took joy in even going to training and being a part of the locker room and just trying to bring as much value to the team as possible. People ask me all the time, would you, maybe go to a smaller school and get some playing time? And all the time I'm like, no, like I really loved my Penn State experience, and I would definitely go back and do it again.
And Danny was known for his rapping in the locker room and on traveling.
Ooh.
Comes from a long line of Irish poets.
Give us a little freestyle, Danny.
Got an instrumental for me, or
Well, we'll maybe come to that.
Couple
Right.
more questions.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, a couple questions specifically about strength training and things like that. Some folks asking about specifically the strength training and the importance of that.
Yeah, so for
Mhm.
keepers in particular, and Todd, maybe, I know Todd's been doing some work with folks out in this COVID season, in this weird time when you can't get together, but how, any suggestions? Remember, these are youth players. So what are the sorts of things that they should be focusing on in terms of their training, off-field training?
I think some of the biggest things is taking advantage of all the games that are televised, men's and women's games that you see on TV almost daily, and watching and observing and trying to take in as much as possible and allowing yourself to be a student of the game. I know I just had a conversation on one of the virtual classes that I do, and we talked about that exact thing of trying to figure out and watch the goalkeepers and not just watch them on the saves. If they're in visual of the camera, what's their starting position? What's their body shape look like before they actually make the save? Or trying to figure out, okay, Manchester United was playing Tottenham. How is Manchester United defending? What's their defensive tactics for that game? How's Tottenham's attacking? Where are they trying to attack Manchester United, or whatever the game may be? And trying to really study the game as opposed to just sitting there and aimlessly watching it. I think those are the types of things that during this COVID, you can really take advantage of it, just because there is so much on television. Plus, from the communication, which we all know is very, very important, you can hear the goalkeeper talk a lot more now, just because there are not a lot of fans in
No
the
crowd
stadium.
noise, yeah.
So you can really get an idea of what they're saying and how they're saying it. So I think those are the things right off the top of my head. I'll let somebody else take the strength side. But just from an observing and learning, that I think that's huge at this point.
Chris?
Yeah, I do. I agree with Todd. Obviously, the last year's been quite difficult for the young goalkeepers, but we've done a lot of stuff at home. Giving them clips of games, trying to identify styles of play, how teams set up to press, how teams set up to build out, and just trying to give them an idea of, starting positions, what they're looking for with and without the ball. And obviously, the camera angles are very relative to that as well. But I think too, a lot of the stuff I've done with the kids have been, revolving around their feet. There's a time to work on their distribution. Just a bag of balls or a ball and going out, finding a wall, brother, sister, friend, doesn't matter, and just working on distribution over, short distances, longer distances, up against a wall, setting targets, trash cans, whatever they have, cones. But I think, especially now at the time we're in right now, working on little things like that to help, their weak foot, their plant foot, just things like that they can work on their own. They don't need somebody else necessarily, but if they have a mum or dad to work with, that's fantastic.
Excellent.
Chris, just to follow up on that, a couple questions specifically about
Sorry, can I just
penal-
piggyback on that real quick?
penalty
No,
kicks.
Luis, go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so growing up, there wasn't a lot of soccer. Actually, when I think about my teenage years before I went off to college, I didn't have a goalkeeper coach. I didn't have any sort of specialized training outside of the few sessions I got before the ODP regional camp. And one game that sticks out in particular is Ben Olsen was playing against UCLA against Chris Albright for the national championship. And Matt Reese was in goal. And, there were a lot of guys that ended up playing in the league. But that was really all we got. If the U.S. national team wasn't playing a qualifier, there weren't games on TV. Every
That's
once
right.
in a while, there was one random MLS game. And yet what kids are able to view now is incredible. And they really should utilize that. They have to embrace the idea of watching games and understanding what it's like to dissect the tactics of a game, and also seeing what some of the best goalkeepers in the world are doing. It's only going to increase their awareness and hopefully their soccer IQ. And this is something that Nick and I didn't have growing up. And then the other thing that Chris said about the wall, like this is something I still did up until I retired last week. is I would just go find a wall, because everything about my development, as I told in the beginning of the session, was late. I didn't start playing goalie till I was 11. I didn't have a formal goalkeeper coach until I was 18 and in college.
Wow.
And I honestly didn't even unlock the greatest part of what I think brought consistency to my game. And that's the mental side, until I was 27 years old.
Mm.
So everything about my career was a little bit late, but it was all undergirded with this mentality of, as a goalkeeper, you have to be brave. That's one of the first elements of being a goalkeeper is being brave. Second, as some of the goalkeepers said before, is you have to have a short-term mentality, but it's not something that you just sort of, okay, you forget about. You look at the goals and some of the mistakes you make, and instead of being afraid of those, you embrace them. Now with an iPhone, you can video anything, right? So if your parents are watching the game, they can set up their iPhone so that they can record the game, so that you can always go back and look at some of those mistakes. And I think this is really important for the mental piece of all of it. I think Chris, Todd, Amanda, Nick would all say the same. The mental part of goalkeeping is what's really going to take you to the next level. If you're afraid of making mistakes, that you've hit your ceiling, right?
Mm.
You have to understand that mistakes are going to happen. They're inevitable. But you also have to learn from those mistakes, because that's what's going to allow you to break through your ceiling. And so when I say that I started to really work on the mental part of my game at 27 years old, what I really started to embrace is these half-truths that went on in my head during practice and during the game. Because your brain is such a sophisticated part of your body, you have thousands of thoughts every minute. And yet those thoughts are unfiltered. And so you have to develop a filter within your own lens of perspective to figure out what's true, right? And if you're able to do that, not only does it keep you engaged, but it also allows you to relay the right information, right? I know this is a lot. I'm just trying to get a lot out there because I don't have a lot.
Fantastic. Thank
right?
you.
But as a young goalkeeper, if you can watch games, not only are you going to understand what some of the best goalkeepers in the world are doing, and you're going to see them do it, but if you can find a wall and work on your feet, this is a part of your game that it doesn't matter if COVID's going on. It doesn't matter if it's an off day. It doesn't matter if it's before the game, that you can always do. Like the wall is always going to have the best touch, unless it's Nick. Nick's touch is pretty spot on with the wall, but that's what Nick's known for, right? Like you even heard Nick say that he always wanted to be out on the field because he wanted to work on those skills. And that's something that young goalkeepers have to embrace as well. Like if their coach isn't allowing them to be out in the field, then you need to find other ways to do that. Just go play pickup soccer somewhere. Like you really have to encourage yourself to work on that part. But just to rehash everything I said, the very last part is there's tons of sources that you can find online. If you ask your coaches, I mean, I know that not everyone's going to have a Chris and not everyone's going to have a Todd, right? But you have the internet, and the internet's going to have a ton of great resources that you can just look up to develop that resiliency within your mind, right? Even at the very end, ask Nick. I mean, things start to fall apart. Ask Ben, like things just fall apart at the end. But in your mind, if you're able to become so Teflon, you don't really worry about the physical part. The physical part doesn't limit you. And yet at a young age, if you can develop that now, you're going to be so far ahead of everything else that you could do that I think that that's going to be the biggest jump for you. And I mean, I know Danny, Evan, and Amanda, you could probably say the same thing. Like if there are certain things that you learn in college, if you could have learned them when you're 14, if you could have learned them when you're 12, you just would have been a better goalkeeper. I'm sorry. I know that was a lot.
No, that
No,
was
it's
that was
great.
that was great. And actually, I want to call out Evan because he alluded to breaking his face. His face was broken. It was Berkeley, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wish I had I'm surprised you didn't put that picture on the highlight intro. I mean, I came for a ball. It was a routine through ball. And the kid it was actually at Cal Berkeley, went a knee right into my forehead. I broke part of my eye socket, crushed my sinus, was in the hospital for a night. It was really scary, but as Luis was just saying, if you're afraid to make mistakes, like that's where you're going to plateau and you're going to stop. So for me, like being able to come back from that was probably one of the highlights of my, short career I had. But that was a very scary moment. And also to piggyback off of Luis there too, he said the internet's a great place. YouTube is your best friend when it comes to learning, being able to watch highlights from, your idol, whoever it may be. I remember when I was, 10, 11 years old, the night before a big game, like I would stay up until like, midnight in my bed, like on my computer watching, Iker Casillas, who was my idol. I'd
He
watch
was
his
Max as
highlights.
well.
I'd just sit there and watch highlights all night and get that picture in my head for the game tomorrow. Okay, I can do that. If that happens, I'm going to make that save. So I wrote in the chat, but YouTube is a great place to do a lot of learning.
Great. Thank you.
Also, coming from the background of the only female goalkeeper here, I
Yeah.
encourage for strength wise. I'm gonna break it to you guys. I just can't kick the ball as far as you, and that's a total reality for female goalkeeping. And being able to find a goalkeeper coach, luckily I was able to when I was really young, and I made sure that I was able to use my feet as much as possible because, you know, if you look at some of the history of Hope Solo, she was a field player all the way up until she played at UW.
Mhm.
And that was an absolute probably key for her going into the national team and everything because she had the best feet in the world on the women's side. So, you know, going alongside of, you know, the idea of watch as much soccer as possible, watch women's soccer as well. I mean, talk about some of the best goalkeepers in the world. We have them right here on our women's side. Like I'm playing alongside, you know, a ton of them right now. And it's, you know, it's an incredible example to see. You know, Jane Campbell, for example, is one of, you know, the top goalkeepers in the world right now with the U.S. women's national team. And seeing the steps that she takes strength training wise, you know, making sure that your reactions are perfect. I think that hand shape is a huge thing that when it comes to women, I just don't think, you know, physiologically, I don't want to say that women aren't equal to men because that would obviously go against me. But
Different is
sometimes
the word.
we just physically aren't faster, you know, or fast enough to be able to make certain saves. So we have to focus on hand shape. We have to focus on those plyometrics, reaction time, things like that. So I think that women do have to look at the game of soccer. Luckily, we play on the exact same size pitch as men do, which I think is obviously all the rules are the same. That's such an incredible thing about soccer. But we do kind of have to look at it through a different lens. And so I think that finding someone who understands that, Tim Wassel, for example, one of the best goalkeeper
State.
coaches
Yeah.
absolutely in the game. You know, I got so lucky to train under him, and he's the reason I'm playing, still continuing to play. And he understood that. He understands that women are different than men, and we have to do different things. We have to be, our reaction time almost has to be a bit faster because our physical ability is just not, you know, the exact same as men. So I think that when you look at it through that lens, you're definitely on a good direction.
Well, and Amanda, it occurs to me, obviously, you all are the pros, not me, but it would make sense then that some of the younger keepers might well do really well to watch how the women are playing, because they don't yet have, even if they're boys, they're not yet going to have that physiology that they'll have at 18, say.
And that's something that naturally occurs as well as coordination. Coordination did not come to me. I was constantly growing. I'm almost 6 feet. And like it just never ended. And I almost had to keep relearning how to be a goalkeeper because I was actually in goal as a different body. You know, I just wasn't the same height that I always was. Like from 14 to 18, I just never ever stopped growing. They called me Baby Giraffe at Penn State for a little bit. My athletic trainer did, because I physically was not in goal as the same person. And so I kept having to relearn my shape and my timing. And I'm still constantly learning, you know, relearning that because I am young. They say that you're not going to be the perfect goalkeeper probably until you're about 30. You're really not going to gather all of those abilities that you keep, you know, that muscle memory that you keep trying to try to relearn. And so, you know, that's a huge aspect of it.
Excellent. I really appreciate just you all having the conversation. Evan mentioned Iker Casillas is his hero, and he was Max as well. He wore his little Iker Casillas outfit all the time. Jack is asking how old Mac was when he started playing soccer. It was 4. You know, just these little kids running around after dandelions more than anything else. But you know, speaking of heroes, for all of you, and Coach Olsen, I want you to chime in too. Who did you look up to when you all were coming up? Who were the folks that you looked at and inspired you? Nick?
For me, it was Tony Meola from the U.S., David Seaman, and Peter Schmeichel.
Excellent. Coach Olsen, how about you? Different position, but
It's a good question. You know, I didn't have a lot of exposure to the game of soccer, and I think someone mentioned that earlier growing up. So most of my idols were doing other things, whether it's basketball. I was a big basketball player growing up, and I love tennis. So, watching Johnny McEnroe and Connors and Sampras, a lot of those players, obviously Michael Jordan, and I was a big Duke basketball fan for some reason. Don't hold that against me. I went to UVA.
Yeah.
Admit that to many people, but I loved a point guard named Bobby Hurley, believe it or not. So it was a lot of other sports. And then my older brother, I was lucky enough, played a lot of sports and beat me up pretty good in the backyard. And he became my idol, who played college soccer as well.
Excellent. How about some of the others? It'd be good to hear from you all who you looked up to. Amanda, was it Hope? Was it some of the others?
Absolutely. Hope was my number one for sure. I had posters of her all over my room. It's a little embarrassing, but yeah, she was such an incredible goalkeeper for our time. And even Brianna Scurry, loved her. She was right before I was born. I was born in 98. I'll show my age here. Just a kid. But yeah, any female goalkeeper I looked up to. I did love men's goalkeeping, but I was just so drawn to women. So I was so lucky to be alive during the time that, those guys were playing soccer. So those were my top for sure.
Luis, call you out.
Like I said earlier, there wasn't a lot of soccer on TV, so the men's national team was pretty much it. So Tony Miola, just that ponytail was a real inspiration. And then Iker Casillas, because I enjoyed watching him play because we're similar height. He plays a lot different than Edwin van der Sar at the time, just because of him and his physical stature. I just really enjoyed watching him play.
Great. Well, we've got a lot of questions here about some real practical things too. And I've just lost track of one about the corner. I don't know if you've got some of the notes, honey,
Yeah,
but
it's especially on like penalty kicks
Yeah.
and coming out from like on corner kicks, how far to come out. Some very specific questions.
so let's start with the PK, right? Because we all know this.
Nick on this, right? This
Oh,
guy's
we got the expert. Yeah, I'd be asking Nick, guys. I don't think there's anyone else can answer that.
Go to the Athletic has a nice article. Huh?
Nick's going to put the URL in the chat, I think, for us. I mean, because it means, Luis, you talked about the mental game. I mean, right? It's all stacked against you as a keeper with a PK, isn't it? How do you approach it, Nick? They're calling you out.
Yeah,
How
no,
do you approach it?
I think only Nick should answer this. No one else.
Okay.
No,
There we go.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is stacked against the goalkeeper. I think the forward, whoever's taking the penalty kick, definitely has advantage. I've always thought that. I think there's a big mental side of the PK. I think your presence, them knowing maybe your stats and your career on penalty kicks, if it's good, maybe that kind of intimidates them a little bit. And I think that's what happened a little bit through my career. I ended up being okay at PKs, and you get somebody that comes up and maybe they know that, and then listen, you figure out little clues and consistencies of these players, and you have Todd that goes over video with you. I mean, the game evolves. Like back then, I didn't have a lot of video analysis of the game. It was just kind of cluing on little hand movements or whatever it may be. And now there's, I mean, Todd, how many videos do we go through, and how many times do I get mad when there's too many of them? And so, yeah, I think there's a mental game for sure. There's a little bit of luck on your side.
You're still not going to give everybody the secret. You're still not going to give everybody your one secret that you don't tell anyone.
Just so everyone knows, I've asked Nick multiple times.
Tell everybody your secret. You're
I've asked
retired. You're retired. Nobody cares anymore. Tell them the secret, dude.
It's the hands. You know this, Ben. How many times have I
Tell
been
the
on interviews?
people. The people want to know, Nikki. The people want to.
I'm trying to grab a ball, but they're all in cases.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Let's see. Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm a field player and I step up. Why don't you tell? Because if I go like this and put the ball down, that means I'm going that way. Is that correct?
Yes. That's how. Yeah, take it when it's worth. That's what helped me. Yes, where you put the ball, wherever you want to go with it.
There you go, everyone.
No way. That's incredible.
I can see in Evan's
never thought of
eyes. Evan is looking, going, maybe I can get back on the pitch.
Yeah, no,
I
And
mean,
that
it's like
information would have
totally-
been good 10 years ago, no?
it's funny because like, I got the opportunity to train with Nick for almost 2 years, and I never knew that secret until right now. That's so funny.
Hey, Nikki, the save percentage in Colorado just went up.
Yeah. Chris is taking some notes.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that.
I have a secret.
those-
I firmly
for those who
firmly
don't
believe
know-
it's the way you stand. I think it's your feet. If the feet are staggered, if you're right-footed and your right foot is behind, I think the way that you naturally take steps, you have to kick it with your right foot across your body. But if your feet are even, it's more likely it's physiologically, I think your hips have to go like with your body, so they're going to go to the right.
Yeah, I always like getting out of the goal as well, trying to make that goal really, really big. And then once he kind of looks and then I come in, maybe it kind of shrinks a little bit. I always did that as well.
Has the new rule affected you guys? Nick, Luis, Amanda staying on that line? Or
Didn't. I mean, I
doesn't change
played
anything?
1 year with the rule, so it didn't affect me. But for those who don't know, that's on this panel and listening, Nick's save percentage is unreal. Like we're joking about it, but it's something like 50 or 55%, right?
So Nick holds the Major League Soccer record for career wins, shutout saves, and overall appearances.
Wow.
No, yeah, but I
I'm
mean,
old.
what's the
I'm
save
old. Is
percent?
what it says.
Yeah, well, the save percent, yeah. Well, I just thought
I
I'd throw
felt
that
like
in.
mine was good at like 33%, but his is like twice that.
He's good enough for a street to be named after him that their stadium's on, so you know.
Hey,
Come on,
but
no way.
who's got more spike ball wins, Nick?
Yes.
This really is fantastic. Luis, there are a couple, Adam, I'd be remiss. Well, first I want looking at Q&A, Jack, we talked earlier about the fact that folks here are saying that it's great to play other sports, that actually can be a real asset. So do that. And it seems like for training, small or large, the wall is perhaps your best friend there. But Adam would be upset, whoever Adam is, if I didn't ask you a couple of the questions, Luis, about playing with Dempsey, playing World Cup.
I feel like he has me mistaken for Nick because I didn't do any of this. This is Nick.
So Nick, is that you?
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, I think that is Nick. Because Nick, you have Luis, you have 3 caps playing with the U.S. men's team, right? And Nick, you've got 31 with U20 and 22 playing with the national team, right?
You probably know more than I would.
Oh, I know what Wikipedia told me, Nick. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
So,
no,
both of you, what was it like at that level, the camps and the games?
Listen, I never said no to a camp. When you get to that level and you get recognized for being one of the best in the States to represent your country, you don't say no. And that's just how I felt about it. And you always want to perform. And I don't think you get to that position by yourself. I think there's obviously a lot of help with your teammates and your coaches. And for me, getting to the World Cup was one of my goals, and I was lucky enough to do that in 2014. I played with Tim Howard growing up, through the 17s, the 18s, the 20s. So me and him had a really good connection, along with Gazan. So we had this real good team bond of goalkeepers there that really helped each other out. But even leading up to that, I think my first cap was in 2002. I was a baby back then, playing with Ben Olsen, who was on the team, and just a dream that came true. You always want to. I think the ultimate goal is to represent your country, go to the World Cup, play on the biggest stage, and that's the pathway to do it. And I was lucky enough to do that through my career.
I mean, Nick's always a guy that I admired. He's the type of goalkeeper that you'd want to model. And it's funny that he said he never said no to a camp. I begged to go to a camp. I went to a handful, and I had to absolutely beg to get in. So I think when you look at his career, it speaks for itself, and all the records that you just named goes along with the very beginning of this call where you talked about consistency. And even Ben mentioned this idea of consistency, that's the goalkeeper that they want. And when you look at Nick's career, that's exactly what it was, is a guy that could also make that spectacular save, but he was just the model of consistency. He did it for so long and won a lot of trophies in the process while winning caps, being a part of some incredible teams for the national team. And I think a lot can be said just with his mentality, but ask Ben, ask Chris, ask Todd, anyone that's worked with him, the guy's locked in. He takes training seriously. He takes the games in training seriously, and he knows that each one of those opportunities gives him an opportunity to be a better goalkeeper for game time.
And I think, thank you, Luis. But I think also, and to go back on what Amanda said, it's owning the goalkeeper that you are, right? I'm not the biggest stature goalkeeper, and I knew that. It's how can I get better in different areas of the position to really open the eyes of coaches, open the eyes of scouts. And I knew I wasn't great at crosses. I knew I wasn't great at coming off, and I knew mentally that I had to be better in other areas. And if that was my feet, if that was reading the game, if that was stop shopping, it was just owning the goalkeeper that I was. And from what Amanda said, it's maybe you're not as fast, or maybe your hands aren't as big. And I had to do the same thing as a goalkeeper. I had to figure out how can I get to that next level, even though I'm not 6'2", 6'3", 6'3". So again, I think owning who you are as a goalkeeper, figuring out ways to better yourself in that position that maybe coaches or teams or scouts look down on you on, and using that as fuel. And I think that's what I did kind of growing up. And I still got knocked for my size when I was 10 years in my career, 15 years in my career. And it was something that I was just used to and just kind of owned it and kind of made the best of it.
Hey, folks, there's Mack's sister, Izzy, all the way from Cambridge, England. So we're just going to wrap up here, but
Couple questions from Danny.
Christian, if I can just add one thing to what Nikki and Luis were just saying as well. And I've had the great fortune of working with Luis and Nick and Evan. And at the end of the day, I think there's one thing, and Nick, you retired at what, 40? I believe you were 40 years old when you retired.
Yeah.
Luis is
36.
36, very, very long careers. And up until their very, very last day, there's one thing that they always would have, a smile on their face when they were training. I think at the end of the day, that's one thing. If you want to really succeed in this position and in this sport, you got to enjoy what you do. You got to enjoy and embrace training. And that's something that I think Luisa and Nick, they embraced, and on a daily, and Evan made mention to it when he mentioned smash ball. Yeah. Always a smile on our face to go out and work on our trade and be better at everything we do. And I think that is a huge thing, whether you're a 40-year-old goalkeeper or if you're a 10-year-old, just learning how to play. You got to enjoy and love what you do. It's a special game, and we're privileged to play it, and you have to enjoy it while you're doing it.
And Todd, I think that's a good summation, because that was what brought us together here. Was Mack loved this game so much, and he loved his buddies. We started the State College Celtics it was a 3v3 tournament with 5 boys. Golly, there's over 100 kids now playing with the State College Celtics. And but he loved the game, and we wanted to find a way to honor his life, but do it in a way that celebrated the fun and the joy of the game. And Todd, you and Bob Warming, Coach Warming, helped us to do that. I'm really just flabbergasted that you all came together here with us today. I'm really, truly humbled.
Thank you so much. And all the chat's going crazy, just thanking you guys so much. And
there's
great.
There's so many more questions that we could ask you about technique and things like that, but I'm just so thankful. And it makes me so proud to know Danny and Evan, to have seen them come up and to wear the Mack patch. Amanda, just so proud as a Penn Stater to see you playing pro out there, achieving your dream. Well, Coach Olsen, it was a real highlight with our buddy Mack and his best friend to watch you guys play in the last season you were in RFK, and always a DC United fan, I have to say. with all due respect to the other teams out there and the players, but thank you all so much for being here. Thank you everyone on the call. And Izzy, I'm so glad and so proud of you too. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, you guys.
See ya. Good seeing you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Love you guys.